Welcome to episode 57 of the Faces of the Future podcast. It's your boy Mills.
It's your boy Shan.
It's your boy Mr. Moose. What's good?
We got a special guest on today for you guys, the one and only co-founder, chief creative officer of Rec Philly, Will
Yes,
Tom,
sir.
the man himself. How you doing today, Will?
Yo, I'm blessed up, y'all. Blessed up, tapped in, excited to be here rocking with y'all. So let's do it.
Good. We're glad to have you, man. Appreciate you hopping on. Especially being members of the Rec. It's great to have the guy who one half of the team that started the Rec Philly. So before we jump into like the Rec Philly 30 Forbes 30 for 30 and everything else, let's talk about who is Will Toms, and let's get a little bit background of where you're from and just about you growing up in Philly and things of that nature.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, man, my beginning just starts in Germantown, which is uptown, you know what I mean, here in Philly. And yeah, as a kid, just early on, bro, from the rip, for me, it was always the passion around art, passion for culture, but also, man, just as a kid trying to figure out, yo, why is there so much money out here and how come everybody I know don't have it? You know what I'm saying? So I grew up kind of like that, like, you know, and then just growing up in the city, we always experience a lot more than folks who aren't from the city and know what that inner city experience is like. And for me, I always needed art to have that outlet to just understand what the hell was happening around me, you know, and in my family. So, you know, I did that. I was growing up loving dancing, you know what I mean? They used to call me Wu-Tang Will and shit when I was at jam and wow.
Yeah,
and all
Wu-Tang
that,
better
you
than
know?
me.
Yo, straight up. So that was a lot of kind of just like my entry into just creativity and art as a young boy. And then always had creative friends, you know what I'm saying? So like, I'm no stranger to like me and the homies rapping in parking lots, you know what I'm saying? And just finding ways to just be us, you know what I'm saying? And ended up really loving that and wanting to always explore what communications media, you know, as a major at school could offer me as far as like going further in production and creative worlds, you know? So eventually went away to school, studied communications media, studied economics, to again solve that, yo, why don't anybody I know have that bread? How does the money work? And yeah, from there, bro, just set my sights on, would it be possible to create a better environment for creatives to win than what had currently existed? You know, because we're from Philly, everyone's talented, everybody raps, everyone has, you know, some level of gift, but time and time again, bro, we just kept hitting that narrative of like, oh, I got to go to New York, I got to go to LA. And yeah, man, I never wanted to believe that. So that's kind of just like my background, how I came up. And, you know, we can go deeper into the personal stuff if you'd like, but I think that's like just a high level.
Real quick.
Yeah,
word.
Go ahead, Tope.
No, real quick. I was gonna wait till a little bit later to ask you that, but like, I mean, since we here, like, why do you think that is as like you have a hub for space for creatives? And for me, like, we had a conversation like I think it was like a couple months ago. I think it was last season, where we were just having this conversation about like people in like the tri-state area. There's not a band of togetherness like you see, like, say, like in Florida or like, you know, New York or even in LA, where like everybody genuinely has a connection, you know? It's like we have Meek, you know, we have Carl, these different people. And I just wanted to get your thoughts on that as someone who has a hub for creative spaces. Like, why don't you think that we have that space for, like, we have like, I guess, like a sense of togetherness or camaraderie for creatives in, like, I guess the PA/Philly area?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of reasons. The first thing though is I would like to believe that in general, I do think every major city has that same tension of just like, yo, I want to get on, or I want my homie to get on, so I can't support this person. Just because like scarcity is scarcity. And that just comes from how we grew up. That comes from the neighborhoods we be in, where it's just like, yo, the mindset is there ain't enough. So if I got to get it, because if someone else gets it before me, then I can't get it. Mm-hmm. And I think, you know, we have to really just unlearn that in general. But I think what helps other cities, right? Like you mentioned Atlanta. I think it's easier for folks in Atlanta in the creative scene to understand that because they've seen more success, right? Like when I think about being a hip hop lover, like there's been cliques and collectives that have been crushing it since Dungeon Family till today, right? So I think for them, and also like for real, like Philly's Philly's a black city. We're a majority black city, right? There's 42%, I think, black people here. But for real, we don't run nothing, unfortunately. Whereas in Atlanta, city government, they look like us. You know what I'm saying? The people who are making decisions, they look like us. So like they have a different value on what the culture means, where it's not just, oh, that's cool, y'all rap, but they understand like, damn, that's tourism right there. Yo, damn, that's real hospitality. Nightlife is really an industry there. So I think when we get there, we'll have a better understanding. But for real, it's like there's not that many institutions here in Philly that support the artists, that embrace art, that value the culture. And unfortunately, sometimes because there's not platforms and institutions, then we as individuals don't really validate ourselves. And if we're not validating ourselves, we're not going to validate each other. And then we stay in that scarcity mindset.
Yeah, nah, that's a fact. That's a fact.
Yeah. So going based off of what you just said, I have two questions. One, do you feel like Philadelphia as a whole doesn't get enough respect on a national scale as far as the creatives go? And then my second question is, did you start Direct Philly for that exact reason that you just said, there not being enough institutions for creatives to thrive?
Word. So the first part of that, you know, like I try to stay away from the idea of like being underrated. You know what I'm saying? Just because I think that like we can all be properly rated if we just know how to market better. So I think it's that. It's like Philly has such an incredible contribution to the world on like the creative stage. But unfortunately, I don't think all of our champions make sure that they're representing Philadelphia and putting on in word of mouth, right? Like, for example, I'm really proud of like the way Wack moves, right? Tierra Wack is a Philly John. She's incredibly talented, but she always makes sure that people know where she's from. Yep. You know what I'm saying? There's a certain pride there. And like Meek is a champion for the city, so he'll do it. But there's other artists that you could think of that have a lot of notoriety that don't really care that that's a thing, you know? And then beyond those names that I'm mentioning who are like the big front runners, when you think about the backing talent to a lot of the music industry, most of them are from Philly, which is crazy. You know what I'm saying? Even a lot of executives in all these labels are from Philly, but they're not in roles that are going to be public facing. So I think it's easy for people to forget just how much talent and how much of the industry really is run by Philly. You know what I'm saying?
So let me ask you this, speaking about people on the back end as well, how do you think we push that initiative and show the next generation that there is representation, that you don't have to be in the forefront as the rapper or the person that's in front of the camera, but you can be someone like yourself or someone else like an executive in the music industry and show them that there are those type of opportunities and like influence them to chase those opportunities as opposed to just, oh, I need to rap or be a hooper or be an actor in front of the screen. I can make bread and be just successful behind the scenes.
100%. Yeah, man. I think that's just a representation thing. Like, I think with social media, we now all have the ability to like, do our jobs well, but also build a presence, just like so people can see it. You know, like, you know, I always think of it like this: like, if Troy Carter, who is a Philly guy, incredible, right? Troy Carter was the man of Eve when she started her career, then went on to discover Lady Gaga, you know, built a company called Atom Factory, then became like the head of artist relations at Spotify. And now he has all these different music technology companies. Like, he's the bull. But if I didn't get introduced to him through the platforms of like, you know, the interviews he did with Rap Radar and Elliot Wilson and like this and that, if I didn't dig for that information, I wouldn't know who Troy was and really understand what his job function looked like, what that lifestyle looked like. But now it's like, yo, we as those executives and the people behind the scenes could just get on this thing and just talk. And I think the more young people can see us and be like, oh, word. So he has those things I want. And how did he get them? And then they go into, you know, do the research to be like, oh, that's what he does. Oh, that's possible. I think that all just starts with that idea of representation and like us understanding that like there's power in us being seen, even if like our job is not to be in the spotlight.
No, definitely. And with that being said, who were like some of your inspirations coming up that you kind of looked up to that kind of like drove you in the direction that you were going in?
Yeah, that's a good question. So for me, bro, I'm a kid who grew up loving everything that was happening with Rockefeller. You know what I'm saying? So like, I was inspired by Hove. I was inspired by Dame. You know, I was also inspired by Def Jam story. You know what I mean? Like the Rick Rubin and everything that was, you know what I'm saying? Like Russ, Master P. And then for real, it took state property to do their thing and have their run for me to really be like, oh damn, these bulls look like my uncles, and they're from where we're from, and they're actually getting it. You know what I'm saying? At least from my vantage point as like, you know, a kid in late middle school and high school. And from there, they was like, oh, word, they got the music, they got the clothes, like they're really entrepreneurs. And I think for me, that's when it really clicked and was like, yo, I could do that, or really it could be done, you know? So those are some of my inspirations. But then also later in growing up, like always was attracted to people like Ryan Leslie, who were artists and creatives, but were also brilliant business minds. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's always where I've kind of seen myself. But now, bro, it's almost like for real, the real inspiration for me is like the Claris Avants of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Black Godfather.
That documentary was
You talk
right?
about the
But
plug,
again,
man. He everywhere.
Right. But again, before that documentary, bro, I didn't really know how crazy his impact was, because he's not somebody who's out here like with this. He's not even from that era. You know what I'm saying? But imagine what it looks like to be Claris Avant today, and you can share the game in real time with these young people.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? That's kind of where I'm at with it. And my man had asked me the question earlier. He asked, you know, was that idea of us not having the institutions why we wanted to build rec? And the answer is yeah. Like, there's a lot of people who identified the same problems that we saw back in 2012, 2013, 2014. But there were so many fewer people who were ready to be like, yo, let's stay here and build the solution. You know, a lot of people are always quick to be like, yo, I'm lit, I got talent, it ain't here in Philly, yada, 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 so let me just go to other places. And I respect that. I don't have no shade for people to do that. But it's like, if everybody did that, the city wouldn't get no better. So for me, I just never was attracted to the idea of moving to New York or LA, because I was just like, all right, if not us, then who? Somebody's got to stay and build. And I felt blessed to just be from Philly, because I think this is the best city in the world to build this model that we're building, because we have so much talent, you know what I'm saying? And so little infrastructure, unfortunately.
And you're in a great location too.
Oh yeah, I mean, we ain't start here, but we here now.
Let's talk about. So I was, obviously did some research, and I was looking at how you guys started. You guys had a warehouse out in North Philly that you were working on. I saw you guys had Broad Street Music Group, where you guys started doing like shows around like Temple. Yeah, started doing shows around Temple and stuff. So I'm really intrigued to find out like how you started back then, like because you're something that we say on our network is, from the ground up, you're the definition of that, so talk about that for a little bit. So kind of how you got started to where you are now.
Yeah, bro. I mean, look, I think the best way to put it is, as an entrepreneur, bro, I got to solve my own problem first. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And everything was built on top of that. So early on, 2012, 2013, this is when I'm getting out of college. I went to IUP, didn't graduate, right? Ended up coming home. And at that point, it was like, yo, it's me and a homies. I had a best friend who was a rapper. I had homies that were singers. And I always gravitated towards, one, the media side of things, and two, the business side. So I'm literally trying to play this like pseudo management role for my artist friends. And I literally just saw at firsthand like how hard it was to be like, yo, how come we can't get the opening slots on these Live Nation shows? You know what I'm saying? Why they not checking for us? Or, how come, we're just not being able to afford paying $80 an hour to get in the Milk Boy, right? Yeah. Knowing that half the records we make are never going to come out. You feel me? Like, so at that point, it was like, one, we got to just start throwing our own shows instead of asking for people to keep putting us on. Like, if they're not going to do it, then like, let's just start with what we got. So, it was, all right, let's just find a crib. Let's throw the parties there. I was in a fraternity in college. So was my man, Dave. So we used our fraternity houses to throw parties at one point. Mm-hmm. And then when it got too crazy for that, then it was like, yo, let's go to these dive bars. So we were literally throwing parties and shows and venues that don't even exist anymore. Like, shout out the Arts Garage up on Ridge Ave. Shout out to like Legendary Dobbs that was on South Street. Like, those are the rooms that gave us the shot in the beginning. And then over time, we literally, through Broad Street Music Group, through hundreds of shows, bro. Like 5 shows a week at one point. Every night, different venues.
5 a week?
Y'all was killing it.
5 shows a week, bro. And and that's when we had jobs. You feel me? So it was like,
Y'all
all
was
right,
grinding.
I was hustling.
real grinding, bro. So it was like, all right, cool. So if we're gonna literally be working 8 to 5, 6 to 2 a.m., we figuring it out. We grinding, booking these artists, doing this stuff. And it was beautiful because what started to happen was we had then worked with thousands of artists at that point, maybe like 1,000 or so. And I kept realizing, I'm like, yo, there are people who are like mad dope. And they would come out and they would literally crush it like on the stage. But then they would get off stage and they wouldn't tell people where to follow them on social media. They wouldn't collect no emails. They didn't have no merch. So it was like, yo, like, all right, so you came, you just wanted to get your shit off, but like you ain't actually think about how you could like create a fan.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Or a customer. And that's when like Dave and I were like, yo, we got to take a step back. Like just creating stages for people to perform on ain't really gonna do it. And we knew we could be more impactful. And I started to really understand that disconnect, right, between an artist building an audience and actually building a business around it. And halfway through, not even halfway, a little bit more than halfway through me running Broad Street Music Group, I ended up getting recruited to work for a marketing agency. It's called Fame House. Okay. So literally, bro, I got recruited to do that. They brought me in. They walked me into a client roster of Eminem, Shady Records, Ice Cube, Live Miami. So when Wayne and all them was talking about Live on Sunday, like I was running all the socials for that. I was running the socials for Ice Cube. So what I learned there was just how we could use digital strategy, how we could use websites, how we could use social media to communicate clearly to those audiences, to really build a brand, know what building a brand really looks like, and then be able to monetize that. And I got to a point after I had a lot of success with one of my campaigns, it was just like, yo, I could easily keep making millionaires more millions, or I could take this exact same skill set and teach it to my homies who trying to figure out how they can go from $0 to $60,000 a year through their art. Facts. And yeah, so that's when I just jumped.
I want to touch on that point right there that you just kind of like explained about your segue between throwing the parties at the university and then doing the grunt. I'll call it grunt work because that's what it is when you're starting off. Is grunt work. You're running social media. You're doing the work that everybody else that doesn't want to do. And but everybody
I got no shame about that.
Exactly. But everybody now they see founder in front of your name in front of Rec Philly, whatever it may be. They don't know that you did all that groundwork to get to that point. Some people, especially with social media nowadays, people just want that end result and don't want to do the stuff that
instant gratification.
You speak on that a little bit and the importance of doing that stuff.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out, bro. I think that's it. It's like instant gratification is what's killing people low key. Like people want to see the end result and think that like, oh, I could just get there tomorrow. But like Nipsey said, one of my favorite Nipsey quotes is like, some people want to skip steps, not knowing that when they skip the steps, they miss the lessons, you know? So like me just building myself as an entrepreneur, you know, that started in those basement shows, dealing with talent that didn't want to come on time and, you know, figuring out how to raise money to even just be able to pay somebody $400 to perform, and what happens when shit goes wrong, when shit always goes wrong, like all the little things, you know? So it's just like, some people want to just get the microwave process, but it's like you don't understand all the interpersonal skills that you're missing out on developing, the stress management skills that you're missing out on developing, the management skills. Because even if you go to school for business, they're not going to teach you what really it looks like to manage and lead people. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like, yeah. And then the second part is everybody wants to look cool. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, if everybody wanted to look cool, no work would actually get done. Exactly. So for me, I'm at a space now where like, if you follow me on Instagram, like I'm out here, I'm putting my face out there, I'm talking, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Because I know, one, it's good for my company, for Rec and the brand. And I know there's a lot of people who need to hear what I have to say, and they might only hear it from me, right? And I had to really get to that point. But before, let's say 2 years ago, bro, I didn't have nothing to say because I was too busy putting in the work. You know what I'm saying? It was like, yo, I don't even want to come out here saying this and saying that until I legitimately feel like I'm in a place where, like, one, I've got my bearings. But two, it's just like, nah, all the time being on this thing, it's like, no, I got proposals to create. I got, you know, like, but yeah, so I'm getting a little long-winded there, but yeah, man.
You're good,
like,
you're good. I always kind of compare that, like the experience part, to like artists going through their artist development. process and having that, I
Yeah.
call it the back catalog of experience, because now you, like you
Yeah.
said, you didn't have anything to say because you didn't really go through that experience. You didn't go through those trials and tribulations to be able to speak on. Oh, so if someone comes to you and asks you for advice, you can't really tell them because you didn't go through it. But now you're at that point where you went through scenarios that the up and coming generation is going to go through, and you can now give them advice, consult them on certain scenarios.
You know what else too? I think you're absolutely right there. But the other part too is like when I was really in it, I was too shameful about what my reality was to want to share it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think a lot of people be feeling like that sometimes. But bro, like there's been times where like there was a time period, it was 2.5, maybe almost 3 years, where I lived out of the warehouse where we started Rec.
I saw.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's just what it was. And you know, on one level, I'm like, one, that's the kind of dedication I think it takes if you really believe in what you're doing.
For sure.
But at the same time, when I was in it, I wasn't trying to have everybody know that that's what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? Just because ego be like, what are they going to think of me and this and that? But all that is ego. And the reality is now that, you know, I was right and I was able to build the things that I said I was going to build even back then while sleeping on the couch. Now it's a little bit easier to be like, you know what? I got some space to talk and guide some other people. But I wasn't trying to be guiding people when I was still sleeping on the couch.
Right.
Yeah.
So you touched on something just there. You talked about like stress management, right?
Hold on,
Sure
real quick. Before we go there though, just so everybody gets this message clear, I really want people to understand that like you should be willing to sleep on the couch. You should be willing to do the dirty work, right? Mm-hmm. But just fall so much more in love with doing the work, and then allow you to know that if you really think you're gonna make it, there's gonna be tons of time later to get all the cool, sexy, flashy things. But the only thing that's going to make that possible is fall in love with that process and that work and that ugly grunt work.
Right.
Know?
Right. So you was talking about like stress management. I'm sure you've had plenty of stressful, sleepless nights. Like you said, you was living in a warehouse for almost 3 years. And I feel like a lot of times people don't know how to really get through that stress and that pressure. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm sure you felt a lot of it. So how did you navigate through that? And what advice can you give to somebody that's kind of going through that same thing right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. Man, stress is always going to be there. So it's just all about, and fear is always going to be there too. But it's just all about what's your relationship to those things. You know what I'm saying? For me, I think the best thing that I ever did, and I'm really blessed for it, is I got homies that literally have been my homies since high school that are like the men that I'm like, these are really my brothers right here. And like, we're all very ambitious. We're all like in this mindset of like, yo, we're going to be in the stars, right? And that's so helpful because in those let's say 99 day out of 100 where you don't feel it, you wake up and you like, man, I ain't with this shit. That's when those men become that much more important to be like, come on, bro, and just to remind you who you are one time, you know? So for me, the fact that I have Dave, the fact that I have my boy Leonzo, and we've been rocking for so long, like, it's so helpful because they could check in and be like, bro, you feeling this way now, but I remember when we was in 11th grade and you was here, now you here, and it could just give you that energy. Because I've seen a lot of people who like, they're so good at what they do, they have it, but they're not willing to change their circles to get what they actually want. And it's so sad because it's like they don't realize, you know, and they'll even paint it in, oh, day ones or loyalty and this and that, but it's like your environment creates your outcome. So if you're not willing,
I'm sorry, I was going to say, can you speak on that a little bit more? Because I think that like I didn't mean to cut you off, but like what I noticed about like a lot of people is that like going back to your conversation of people that have talent, you kind of have to like for me, I understand that like, for example, I'm a creative myself, you know, and being around certain people wouldn't get me to that space, you know, being around Shannon, being around Miles, you know, who Miles is, you know, kind of someone who kind of pulls certain things out of you, and Shannon, who's always there for your support. It's like, it puts you in a different space, you know, and it's like, you kind of want to gravitate towards those people. So can you speak to, you know, probably, I guess, a time where you kind of had to learn that you couldn't gravitate around certain people just so you could get to where you were?
Yeah, bro. And I'm gonna give a very real example that people probably resonate with. There came a time in me building Rec that I had to just admit that like, yo, I love my family deeply, but at the same time, I had to make a sacrifice and be like, yo, like, I can't just go to every cookout. I can't go to every birthday party. I can't go to every baby shower if this is what I really want, because it just don't add up. You know what I'm saying? And keep it a buck. It's just like, yo, like I'm a pioneer in my family in certain ways, right? So there's certain things that my family can support me in, but there's some things where it's like I gotta figure it out so I could bring it back to them.
Definitely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So when you think about it like that, it's like I believe you design your environment for what you want. So like the basic example is if you want to learn how to make money, but you don't spend no time with anybody who has money, who makes money, then it's just like, what do you expect to happen? You know what I'm saying? If you don't spend time around creative people, how do you feel like you're gonna always have the juice to be creative?
Yeah.
And I think once you can really like respect that, everything gets easier, because then it's just like, all right, if I want to be a better ball player, let me go to where the serious ball players be at. And also be willing to be ass for a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Because you know that you still competing at the higher level. So yeah, man, I just think everyone should really understand and respect the fact that like your environment will create your outcome, whether you appreciate that or not. At least in my life, it's been true.
Since we're on relationships and the people around you, can you speak on your relationship with Dave and how you guys kind of like came together to build such a prominent space in the city? And you guys are very well known. Obviously, it's like when you hear either you hear Dave or you hear Will, you think Rec Philly automatically. So can you speak to how you guys built that brand and made it so strong?
Word. Yeah. Well, first, thank you. Yeah. So I mean, again, me and Dave go back to high school. So like that's really my boy, yo. Like we've been through a lot together. Like he's seen me at my best, he's seen me at my worst, and vice versa. Um, and we've been able to have the blessing of going through certain experiences that like really built that trust, you know, to be like, yo, is this person really for me, or is it just based off what we can do together business wise, right?
Mhm.
And for us early on, we realized that one, we come from two completely different backgrounds, right? And we early just had a trust and an appreciation for where we both come from and what we're both good at, and the dynamic of the balance that's created there, right? What I'm great at, he's not. What he's great at, I'm not, don't want to be, right? So for us, we realized that once we realized we had that complementing skill set, but we had the same like vision for what we were trying to do in the world. We wanted to build an impactful business. We wanted to stay close to creative energy. It was like, all right, bet. So how do we use those complementing skill sets to almost be like bridge builders for what we're trying to do? And, you know, once we started to understand what that looked like and could get out of each other's way, right, to respect the difference in skill set and be like, all right, bro, you do that, I'm gonna do this. And if we both can do what we do best, the company will be better for it. We just will rock like that. And then also even respect like how relationship building comes into play. Like I'm not naive to the fact that my business partner is white. You know what I'm saying? He's not naive to the fact that his business partner is black with a beard. You feel me? So it's like there's certain rooms sometimes where it's like, all right, I got this relationship, but I'm gonna send Dave in there because I feel like they're gonna be ready for what he has to say, and then he'll bring me in, right? And there's other times where it's like, all right, yo, like I'll never forget. Like there was one time Dave got connected to Tory Lanez' assistant on some like random shit one time. Right away, he was like, yo, Will, this boy says he's Tory Lanez' assistant, but I'm gonna give you his number because I want you to navigate this, right? Because we're just conscious of like how we move and how, and just who's best at what, you know what I'm saying? So like, and long story short, that relationship turned out to be one of the most impactful situations for one of our members who had his life changed because of that. But I think it's just that understanding of like, we both have confidence in who we are and our ability, that we trust the other person to do their role. And if we both do that, we'll win. Yeah. And then, you know, you asked about like, just how do we build the brand? Like, I think a lot of people talk about building brands, and I think it's like a big buzzword right now. But when I think of the word, right, you know, but when I think
everybody got a brand,
right, and it's like everybody got a brand, but do you have a reputation?
Exactly.
Right, which is really what a brand is. A brand is really just a reputation. Like, what do people say when they talk about you? What do they know you for? And I think in the beginning, we just wanted to build a reputation that like we were the people who would do what we said we were gonna do. You know, on the big and in the small, like And I think that's what helped us even back in Brush Street Music Group days. Like we said you was going on at 9 o'clock. You was getting on stage at 9 o'clock. But the irony was that was new for a lot of artists because they were dealing with promoters who would be like, yeah, you go on at 9, you sitting there at 12:30 a.m. like, yo, when am I up? When am I up?
I'm saying, yeah.
And people don't respect the fact sometimes that like how you do something is how you do everything.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, yeah.
All right. Before we get into the song of the day, I want to ask one more question. So you spoke on a lot of different scenarios. I just want you to touch on the importance of perspective, because you said you and Dave came from two different backgrounds, and obviously you have a wide variety of individuals that work with you guys at Rec Philly. So having different perspectives and different ideologies and thoughts, like how important is that, not just in business, but just in relationships?
Yeah, I think having diverse perspectives coupled with having empathy for everyone's perspective, I think is like the secret sauce to success. Like when you have a lot of perspectives in a room and everyone respects each other, there's something magical that happens when like ego can disappear. Mm-hmm. And when you do that, it's like, I could come in with me being me, I'm visionary bull. So I'm like, yo, we're going to do this thing and it's going to be like this and we're going to have that and we're going to have that. But to also have someone coming from the perspective of like, okay, but what's step one? Right? And me not be in my ego and be like, no, but we got to do it all the way. It's like, that's what makes us the strongest team possible. You know, it takes the person who is super visionary, but it also takes the person who's data driven. It also takes the person who's just like, push this forward by any means. And it also takes the person who's like, but did everyone get to speak up? Right? And I think having all of those just make sure that we don't have blind spots. So what I love about having so many different perspectives is like, you know, for example, we're fundraising now. And when I go into the room and I'm pitching these investors and I'm asking for millions of dollars, I can do it with confidence to know I got the answers to whatever they're probably going to ask me. Because before I got in that room, my team has already asked me all the questions.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I gave them the space to do so, not just trying to carry it and be like, oh, I'm the co-founder. Don't ask me no questions, right? Like, because then I'll get there to the rooms that really matter. They ask me a question, I'm not prepared.
Exactly.
You know? So yeah, it's the perspectives, and then also like having empathy and respect for everybody's perspective. And then lastly, just like taking it all with a grain of salt and still being true to who you are, no matter what opinions and perspectives you get.
No doubt.
Solid. So we'll go into the Face of the Future song of the day presented by MBT. You guys can check us out on Instagram at MBT_the1% and on Twitter, MBT the Future. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel at MBT Faces of the Future for all our video content. The Faces of the Future song of the day comes from Charlie Heat and Clemons. It's coming off of Charlie's latest R&B project. It's about to drop soon. The song goes by the name of Ladylike. It's been buzzing, getting a lot of traction. Those are my guys from the tri-state area as well. So once again, this is Charlie Heat and Clemons, Ladylike. Once again, that was Charlie Heat and Clemons, Ladylike. Check it out, streaming on all platforms. Let's jump right back into it. So we talked a little bit about perspective. We talked about rec, relationships, things of that nature. I kind of want to push the narrative to the creative side and just giving some creators a little insight of things that are going on, because a big talk that's going on, especially like the podcast world, since we're on the podcast, is finding your value and be able to leverage that when it comes to potential people trying to buy into your product, whatever it is, or you trying to do partnerships with other people in the long run. So can you speak to that and what it means to create value to a product and able to use that when you're trying to elevate in whatever industry you're in?
Interesting. Yeah, that's a cool question. I mean, I put it like this, and I think I posted something like even earlier this week about this. I was talking about networking, and I was saying that like the one flaw that I think people take when they start trying to network is they think networking is about, yo, who can I find that could be valuable to me? But for real, like great networking is like, okay, I know what I'm good at. I know what my value is. And it's going into a room and being like, all right, who in this room can I be valuable to? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think that like just shifting your perspective like that could help so much, instead of people going around and be like, yo, what you got for me? What you got for me? And it's just like, bro, like we all have our own goals and ambitions. So like, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's first. But on the question of just like, how do you kind of think about your value? Like that's a hard thing to do, right? Especially for a creative. Cause like, most creatives think that like, yo, my value is this song, right, that I wrote, or my value is like these clothes that I create. But for real, most culture, nah, the real value is how you make people feel. You know what I'm saying? And sometimes we don't do the hard, right? Like that's what it is. It's like I listen to the songs because of the energy they give me. You know what I'm saying? So whenever I'm in a certain mood, I want to match that or I want to change that. So it's just a small shift in thinking. But sometimes it just takes real work to understand and be honest with yourself about like what your value is and also what it ain't, you know? So I don't know. That's how I think about it. I'd be happy for you to give me like a follow-up if I didn't really answer your question, but
no, you definitely answered my question when it comes to like the value aspect. And I don't know if the guys had anything else when it came to that topic specifically about value and knowing your value, but to continue with that is like when you're trying to prove your value, do you think it's important to have a solidified track record, or do you think that doesn't really matter at the end of the day?
Ooh, that's a good question. I look at it like this. As long as you have the self-awareness to know what your value is, then you should go and share that value with people. But the sometimes what trips people up, right, is people will be like, I'll put it to you like this. You know how a lot of people be wanting to do internships, right? And today, for some reason, people be looking down on free internships. You know what I'm saying? Because they'd be like, oh, I know my value. I'm not going to work for free. And like a part of me is like, I don't believe, you know, I do feel weird about people doing free work because I'm just like, yo, we're not slaves out here. You know what I'm saying? We in a different place. But here's actually what the real is. People think that when they go into internships, they're going to add so much value to this company. The work that they're doing is going to contribute so much. But for real, until you actually have experience, you're probably not going to add that much value to that organization. And whoever is your boss is going to actually have to take time out of their calendar to train you, to teach you, to help you gain experience. So for real, you should almost be willing to pay for your internship if you know that you're going to bust your ass, you're going to learn. Because what that is you're literally learning on someone else's dime. You're learning at the risk of someone else's reputation, right? So it's just like, if you do something well, I believe you should get paid for it. But you got to be able to really know how your input is going to drive the output of the thing. So it's like, I was just going to use this last example. It's like, if you've never done a music video that you're super proud of, that like you would like share everywhere and be like, yo, this is super fire, you should not be charging people money to shoot their music videos. Because it's just like, oh, like
facts.
Like, why does that make sense to you? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so that's how I think about it. But once you got a portfolio where you're like, yo, look at all the work I've done. This is fire. And I've seen what it's done for my clients. Yo, charge it up, run the bag up. But before then, it's like, come on, man, you can't take someone's hard-earned money when you're not even sure if you're good at the thing that you're asking. You know?
Yeah, I was going to expand on that because it's like I saw that same thing. And for me, like I used to work in politics. So like I used to work for the state. And like a lot of times it's like I'm looking at people and it's like you don't understand. For like you said, it's like people come in thinking that, oh my gosh, like I should be paid because I'm contributing something to your company. But it's like more times than not, a lot of people that do get those internships, I'll use just my political experience, for example. Most of those things that we're asking you to do, it's not to say that like it's not valuable, but 9 times out of 10, it's most of the work that's one, that we don't have the time to do, and two, some of the stuff that we're trying to see if you want to put in the work to actually do the big boy stuff. You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, I use this example. I was a legislative aide in North Jersey, and we had I guess like this thing that we were doing for senior citizens, and there was a list of over 10,000 just senior citizens up in that district that we were doing. And we had to split it between 2 offices. And I had to sit here and fold and seal like about like 4,000 envelopes in like a week by myself. And I'm getting paid for this. You know what I mean? I'm getting paid. You know, so it's interesting to see that conversation. I'm glad like you brought that up, just because it's like a lot of people, it's like, for me, I was like, hey, so and so, we getting interns? Because it's like, I got other things I got to do, like me
You're
folding this
like,
killing envelope like this. It's like,
right. You're like, I can be more valuable than this.
exactly.
You know?
And that,
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things that people don't understand, that it's like a lot of times it's like the value that you're putting is saving us time. So that's how the people that have the value, like you said, are applying their value to somewhere else. So I think it's just an interesting perspective that you brought that up. Like I guess we could go into that too. Is like, you feel like, because you brought up a really good point. Where do you think how do I say this? Where do you think the fine line is between where somebody still needs a little bit more work, as in working under somebody, versus whether somebody's free to go out on their own? Because it's like, we live in a generation now where a lot of people have a heightened sense of importance or a heightened sense of value. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how do you determine, say, just hypothetically speaking, not saying he's not good. Let's say Hype Williams when he was younger. When do you think that Hype Williams could have been like, you know what? All right, I can branch out on my own, especially in this social media generation, because people think that they could drop a little snippet and they're ready for a music video. You know what I mean? So like, where do you think the fine line is between you still need more work and like you're valuable, you know?
I think when you are at the point where you have created repeated results, like not just a lucky I got one off and I did that thing, but when you know how to build a system to repeat an outcome, that's when I think you're ready. And if it's not that, then I think you should be grateful for learning under somebody else who's built a system that drives a repeated outcome. You know what I'm saying?
That's true.
That's how I think about it, because it's just like, look, one of the things I think sometimes people don't think about, like, every business is a system. It's just how you do this and then that and then this and who talks to who, and then ultimately the customer gets the product or the customer gets the experience. So if you're not at a point where you're ready to build your own system, you shouldn't be trying to run a business on your own, because like then you're literally going to be scrambling every day trying to make ends meet for the day, right? And
Yeah.
it's like nah, you know. So yeah, I personally, I'm like, for me, I'm grateful that I got to work at Fame House. You know what I'm saying? Because I got to learn how to build marketing plans. I got to learn how to work with clients and what it meant to organize a system. Like, and now I'm like, all right, cool. Now I could do these things. But when we get interns and like they come in, one, I'm really grateful of the interns that we've gotten, because I think our internship program, like, we really actually do put people in positions to learn at a rapid pace, because they are going to be hands-on and they are going to really have opportunities to add real value. But at the same time, I also never get emotional when we have an intern who comes in and does great work, and then they go on to the next thing and they leverage the fact that they work for us to then get into their next opportunity. So it's like, it's that part too. Like, a lot of people get all emotional about like, oh, well, I invested in this person or in this company, and then all of a sudden it didn't work out. But it's like, yo, like that's what it's about. Like, I think sometimes we get too emotional and people will be like, oh, well, like when people be like, oh, I didn't want to work there. I felt like they were using me.
Yeah.
It's like, but like, aren't we all just using each other?
Exactly.
Right? Don't we all want to be useful?
Yeah.
Right? Like,
You want to be useful
so
at the end of the day.
right. If you can't be used, you're useless. You feel me? So it's just like,
you know,
yeah.
I feel as though too, like you said, when someone moves on from like your internship or whatever and use you as leverage, I don't think people should feel bad about that. I feel as though that's a good reflection on you as a person, because you helped develop them, and now you seeing them going. I look at it as like a college coach preparing their kids to go play pro. I tell people that all the time. Like, you're developing, you're like the developmental stage of them. You're getting them experience, that playing time, whatever it may be. So now when it's time for them to sign that contract and go to the big leagues, they're ready. So I mean,
100%. Yeah, I love like I've seen many of our staff members like work with us, do really great work, and then they want to go off and build their dream. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's lit to me. Like, if you were able to learn here and get the confidence here to be ready to do that, and you probably got some extra relationships, you know what I'm saying? You done seen this and that. Yeah, I personally love that. But I think it takes a certain kind of person who's like thinking abundantly to not be like, oh, well, I put on all this energy in them and they're gone, as if like, I'm not going to have more energy. I'm not going to have more opportunity, you know, things like that.
Nah, definitely.
How did it feel to be on the Forbes 30 under 30? Because like, you know, when you see Forbes, that's like huge platform that's paid attention to from people all around the world. You know what I mean? So how was that experience like for you?
That's a global scale right there.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
Bro. Man, it's hard to even put it into words, bro. Like when I first became an entrepreneur, like when I was just starting out, you know, like I've always been a visionary kind of guy. So I always wanted to kind of see the vision before I started type deal. And one of the biggest bucket list things for me was to be able to make the Forbes list, you know? And
you did that.
Facts, right? And to be able to, and to also be able to do it on my own terms. Like I personally believe like rec is literally just an embodiment of me. You know what I'm saying? Like what I care about and all those things. So to be able to not only make the list, but to make it doing it my way, right? Like I'm a black man from Germantown without a college degree. You feel me? So to make Forbes 30 under 30 is like, I don't know how artists feel like when they win their first Grammy, but like that's how it felt for me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
And it's not even just like, it's not just the external validation, like, right? Like there is something special about being revered by that platform as one of the top 30 people in the world to do what you do. Like that's fire. And I can't even front. Like that feels good. But really it's more of like, yo, the goal I set for myself when I was 19, I did that shit. And now understanding that I did that shit, knowing what I knew now and back then, it's like, yo, the goal I set for myself at 40, oh, it's cake. Because I learned that thing, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, but it felt amazing, bro. And like, and calling my grandmother for the first time to be like, yo, guess what? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, bro, hey,
how was that response from your family? How was that response from your family when you told them what was going on?
It's crazy, man. And it was pretty emotional because like, you know, again, in my family, I am, you know, looked at as like a bit of the pioneer, you know what I'm saying? I do a lot of things that my family hasn't done yet, you know? So it's just like, I feel like when I talk to my grandmother and when I talk to my pop, like it means so much because I think it helps them realize that none of the things that they've experienced in their life were in vain. You know what I'm saying? Like my pops is booked. Like my pops has been booked for the last 23 years. You know what I'm saying? So it's just like to hear him on the phone just expressing his like how proud he is of me and like, you know, I'm gonna give you a real ass moment, yo.
Let's do it.
There was a conversation I had with my pop. It was the first time I talked to him since the Forbes news dropped. And because of COVID and everything, I hadn't really talked to him in like weeks, you know, before that. And he hit me with some shit. He was just like, bro, like, you don't know how proud I am. Like, just the fact that like I'm in here, but like I get to hear this news and just watch you just in general doing what you're doing. He was like, man, if I had to go through everything that I went through and knowing the consequences I had to touch because of it, but still know that you would be where you are right now, he's like, I'd do all that shit again in a second.
Damn.
And like, and that hit me because I'm just like, damn, like, come on, bro. I don't know if I'm trying to be where you was at. I don't know if I had that level of sacrifice, right? But it's just like, it almost helps me understand that like, you know, the freedom that I've been chasing and that I've been able to attain, his freedom's wrapped up in that in certain ways too, because he's even moving different on the inside, just knowing what his seed is doing out here. You know,
that's what's up.
And yeah, man, that's just like a feeling that is really hard to put in words, but I think that just sums it up for me, bro. Like that's just joy right there.
That's definitely something to be proud of for sure on every level, in my opinion. And just speaking on that fact of basically having to navigate without your father figure there based on your situation. I think that representation is something that matters. I feel like there's a lot of black males, we're all black males here that kind of get lost in that navigation because they don't have that father figure there. So if you want to speak on that just a tad bit, I know you touched on it a little bit now, but like just your path and just having to figure out yourself, not as a businessman, but as a man yourself. How is that navigation when you're trying to do all the things you're doing right now?
Facts. When Cole said no role models, that shit is real. You know? Yeah, I think there's a very unique experience just like being a black man, navigating what that means to be a black man in America and doing it without a father to kind of guide you. Like you in the jungle out here to a certain extent, you know? But for me, I feel like it was always about like, I didn't have those types of influences like directly around me, right? Because not only was my pops booked, but like most of my uncles were either murdered at a young age or were spending time in prison as well. So it was one of those things where it was like, one, I almost had role models of like, that's what I'm not trying to do, right? Which was helpful in its own regard. But that's why it was also so important for me to just like find, you know, representation of other folks. Like Didi was a mentor of mine before he knew it, you know what I'm saying? And Russ, and it was important to watch those guys because it was just like, that's it. And then honestly, the other thing was, again, going back to my boys, like, you know, I really look at my bros like we were all just fucking single parents raising each other out here. You know what I'm saying? To a certain degree. And it was just trial and error. But the one thing that about that, I actually had this conversation with my boy Leonzo at one point, because we were talking about how we felt like we had to raise each other in a certain way, just because neither one of us really had our pops in our lives. We got to a point where we were just like, yo, how does it feel now to realize that you are that person to other people, but you're that person that you never had to so many people? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I didn't grow up with a will, right? So now it's like when I think about the people who get to watch me, whether that's my siblings or members or just people on the internet, it's like, damn, like I take that as a real responsibility to just be like, yo, let me show up real. Let me show up and teach what I know. Cause I know I had to navigate kind of bumping my head because I didn't have that exact person to model after, you know?
Facts. So let's talk about the rec now. Bunch of amenities, Live Nation stage, 250-person venue, co-working space, 4 recording studios, live recording room, excuse me, visual lab, design studios, collaboration rooms, WXPN podcast studio. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, right? So is the rec right now, is it everything that you hoped it would be?
Oh man, we just getting started.
Right.
No. Yeah, like I'm very grateful. I don't want to get it twisted. I'm very, very grateful for where we are now, and I'm very proud of it. Like the fact that someone can come in here and the energy is what it is, access to all the things you just mentioned, the education, fire. But at the end of the day, bro, in my head, we are literally just getting started. You know, right now we're fundraising to really take things to the next level. I have so many ideas for what I want the experience of the app to be and how people navigate that. We're going to launch 2 more cities in the next 18 months, which is super exciting.
That was my next question.
I remember you talked about it before.
My next question was if you have any plans for expansion. So speak on that.
Yeah, 100%, bro. Like, I think what we've done here in Philadelphia, I'm really proud of because it's really proved the model and you know, that people, it's not even just a nice to have. Like there's people who really are taking extreme amounts of value out of this and being able to change their situation by just having access to this resource set, right? And the information and each other. But you know, we never really thought we were just solving a Philly problem when we built Rec. It was always about, yo, creatives everywhere deserve to have this level of resources and understand resource sharing and things like that. So yeah, we're in full fundraising mode right now, man. Even today, a lot of my day was pitching and you know, planning meetings for when we're in Miami next week. So yeah, Rec Miami is coming. Rec Atlanta is coming. Yeah.
Okay. That's what's up.
And it's exciting because now our members, right, get the opportunity to be able to hit these other cities. And they could do that with the confidence of like, yo, like there's like-minded people down there waiting for me. The resources are waiting for me. And I'm already ready to just tap in. So that's what I'm most excited for. Like when y'all ready to take the podcast on the road and there's already 3, 5, or 10 rec cities where you know you can hit the Live Nation stage in Miami, right? And it's easy for you to book. And you don't got to like, you know, beg this one company to be like, yo, you guys should really give us a shot. It's like, nah, you've been a member of this community. You know, it just makes sense, right? Because that's what the real vision is. The real vision is to be able to build this ecosystem across the world where creatives that look like us, that are like us, we can all build and lean on each other more than we got to lean on any of these institutions that we for no don't.
Yeah,
that's something I wanted to ask.
No doubt.
When it came to you opened up new spaces, because I know you're probably familiar with like Soho House, like where if you're a member in like New York, you can go to like, you can have a workspace, and when you're in LA, you can go work there if you're a member. Is it going to be something of that type of nature? Like say we're members here and then we go to LA or whatever, and we want to work out there. If we're a member or whatever tier, maybe we'll be able to go out there and work as well.
Exactly that. And we want to encourage that, bro. I think there's going to be something crazy special that happens when like people from Philly and Miami just going back and forth, right? Just like trading that energy, collaborating. So yeah, we're gonna have a tier of membership that'll include access to all the spaces.
That'll be solid.
Fire. Yeah, the vibe inside the rec is great, because I remember the first day we walked into the podcast studio and we was looking around like, oh, we here now. You know what I mean? We here. You know what I'm saying? It was a great feeling to be in there.
Bro, that's the feeling. What you just explained, bro, and that makes me so happy, man, because like that's what we deserve. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we was up in North Philly, like that space had its own charm and its own character, which I'm still grateful for. But we was thugging it out. You know what I'm saying? Our equipment wasn't top tier. We didn't have no heat. We didn't have no AC. So we was really just, people just really liked being there, and the energy that we brought as people made it what it was. But now it's like, nah, I want somebody from Germantown or from North Philly to be able to jump on the train knowing that they're going downtown to build their creative business. When they get there, like, it's real resources here that were built for us, as opposed to us always gotten to just make something be what we need it to be,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm really grateful that you shared that, bro, because like that's what it's about. You know what I'm saying? We got to be able to walk in with that energy to be like, yeah.
So before we wrap up, I want to do like a rapid fire question thing before we wrap up with you.
Tight.
Just get your
Let's
thought
do
on something. NFTs, do you think they're going to be around for longer than 5 years?
Absolutely. NFTs are the future. Learn as much as you can, invest where you can, because I think NFTs are going to be almost as impactful as the internet was when it came on the scene.
LeBron or Jordan?
Jordan.
Ooh. Favorite NFL team?
LeBron's still playing, bro. LeBron is still playing.
We could go. I would debate you right now, but it'll be a long debate. But when I'm in the rec, we'll have this conversation. Toby turned his hat around.
About to turn into Ash Ketchum. Stop playing with me.
That's funny.
That's funny.
That's funny.
Let's keep going. We might have to come back to that, but let's keep going.
Will the Eagles win a Super Bowl in the next decade?
Man, I mean, the Eagles fan in me wants to say yes, bro. Like, I have to
but
say,
it's a no.
Next question.
Where will Will Towns be in the next 10 years from now? A decade from now, what will Will Towns be?
A decade from now, man, I'll almost be 40, which is crazy to even say. Yeah, I think by then I'm gonna get to a place where rec is gonna have legs of its own. It's gonna be doing its thing, and I'll have created a life for myself where I think I'm gonna be a venture capitalist. I think that's my next calling. I'm gonna be an architect. I'm gonna be a venture capitalist, and I'm gonna be able to use the wealth that I've built to go and find other young entrepreneurs that are doing stuff that I can be valuable to and support that growth. That's where my spirit's been lately.
Definitely. And pre-production, we talked about Clarence Avon and his legacy. So when it's all said and done and it's time for you to head out, leave the earth, what do you want your legacy to be?
I love this question. So I think about this a lot. And for me, I've just come down to it's as simple as I want to, when it's all said and done and people think about what I left on this earth, I want people to feel that I contributed some way to dispelling the myth of the starving artist, right? Like that idea where people be like, oh, I'm a creative or I'm an artist. And then people be like, but what's your plan B? Like, I want to just have been able to create things and do things and maybe have just been myself so much and become a model for the fact that like, yo, you really can build a business around your passion. Like that's not a game, So if I could do that and I've helped people build wealth by being themselves, that's all the legacy that I need.
That's solid. That's a great answer. I think that's a great way to end the pod. I appreciate you for coming on this episode, man.
Thank you for your time, bro. We appreciate
honestly
all the success.
Yeah, I appreciate y'all, yo, and I had such a good time, man. Y'all are thorough with this thing, man.
Definitely, bro. We're gonna do it again. It's not gonna be the last time we have you on. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna do it again. Next time, we'll probably do it in the rec. You know what I'm saying? Do it bigger for sure.
Listen, give me like 9-10 months. Maybe we'll go to Miami and do it in that rec, John.
Say no more.
You know what I'm saying?
Say no more.
But that's all for episode 57 of the Face of the Future podcast. It's your boy Mills.
It's your boy Shan.
Manson Moose.
And thanks for being on, Will. We appreciate you, man. That's all. Check us out, man. We'll see y'all later.